Oh,
Hey
and I have to share
everybody.
my. Or no, go ahead. Sorry.
Recording. Hey everybody, it's David here. We're getting ready to do our next set of presentation. Today we have JR from MasterCoin talk about the system that he's implementing. So same format as always, 15-minute presentation, and then we're going to jump into about 15 minutes of Q&A. So without any further ado, let me go ahead and hand it over to JR, who's going to take us through his presentation. JR.
Hey, and thanks for your time. Yeah, as you said, my name is J.R. Willett, and I was a presenter at the San Jose Bitcoin conference where I talked about this. Although this idea goes back much, much farther. I'd say I started talking about this probably in 2011. It's actually a pretty simple idea, and I'm surprised nobody else has done it before. You mentioned the name MasterCoin. That will immediately make people think of all the altcoins that are running around. This is actually not an alternate blockchain, not an alternate coin. This is built directly right on top of Bitcoin. The one sentence summary is I'm building a new protocol layer, on, excuse me, on Bitcoin. You can sort of imagine the way HTTP runs on top of TCP/IP, the web running over normal internet protocols. And anybody who's a computer science major or has some familiarity with protocol layers will immediately know what I'm talking about, that if you have one protocol layer, you can build something else on top of it usually. So the idea is to add features to Bitcoin without having to change the underlying protocol layer. That means that anybody who's running Bitcoin right now doesn't have to install anything new. They can continue to use it exactly as it is, and other people who want new features can run some additional software that adds additional logic and basically has a new currency with some new features built right on top of Bitcoin. So and you can hear me talk about this at the conference. There's a video for that. It's on YouTube. I was on the panel called the Bitcoin in the Future, and I mentioned this idea, and it starts off with something kind of like a Kickstarter. Now, I've got my screen share up here, and essentially the name MasterCoin is the protocol layer that runs on top of Bitcoin, and to purchase that coin, people simply need to send Bitcoins to an address that I named the Exodus address, trying to be clever. The Genesis block started Bitcoin, while the Exodus address starts MasterCoin. And I've got it here on my laptop, and you can see there's over 2,000 Bitcoins that have been sent to this address. A little over 1,200 of those are mine. Everything else comes from people who think this might actually work. And the most recent one was just a few minutes ago. I saw it come in while I was waiting for this meeting to start. So there was recently an article on CoinDesk talking about this project. They did a pretty good job of talking about what's going on and even the potential drawbacks of it, and bloating the blockchain and so forth. So anyway, that article drove a lot of new investors to this. They're mostly pretty small investors, but it's cool that it's getting some more widespread attention. So one thing you may or may not have noticed looking at my screen right now is this is not the normal blockchain.info layout. There's a slight modification. I'm running a GreaseMonkey script which parses this page, and for the benefit of my investors, will show them how many MasterCoins they purchased, and I'm highlighting the most recent one. And what you see there is that 0.5 Bitcoins purchased 50 MasterCoins plus a little bonus. And the bonus is based on how early they bought in before the deadline, which is the end of this month, August 2013. So basically, I'm doing a little Kickstarter type of fundraiser. Anybody sending money to this address owns the new MasterCoins. And then the idea is to make those MasterCoins have some awesome features and become really valuable. And I'm by far the biggest purchaser of them myself, and and other people are coming along with me for the crazy ride. So the bonus is actually in the amount of 10% per week. So I launched this right at the end of July, and so the earliest people that got in got 4.5 weeks early, which is 45% bonus for how many MasterCoins they purchased with their Bitcoins. So now, how does this actually work? Is a fantastic question. And I think we should, for illustration purposes, I was really excited when I launched a giveaway thread and then sent the first MasterCoin transaction. It was historic for me. Hopefully someday the world will consider it historic. So I've changed tabs over here to the transaction that sent the first real MasterCoin transaction. So what you see here is an input address and 4 outputs. One of the outputs, the one with the most Bitcoins, is the change, and so we would ignore that. The other 3 are specified by the protocol. So let's take a look at that. I have a post that I made that broke this particular purchase down. Let's see, the guy that I sent this to was appropriately named Crypto Beggar. Apparently, I'm guessing he must be somebody who sits around waiting for giveaway threads and then jumps on them when they first come up. So I'm going to grab his address here, the recipient. So he's 1CU3, and we're just going to go through part of what I did when I sent him these MasterCoins. So I'm going to copy that. I'm going to come over here to the command line. What I'm going to do is I'm going to run a little Python script. The first thing is it asks me what kind of currency I want to operate in, MasterCoin or something called test MasterCoin. The idea here is new features and crazy ideas happen first on the test MasterCoins, and then once we feel like they're working, go be implemented on MasterCoin as well. So I'll send him test MasterCoin. Well, let's see. I think I'm going to go over here and see if I can copy exactly what I did. So yeah, the first thing I did was send him test MasterCoin and the amount of 1. So I'm going to go back to my command prompt. So I just want to make sure I do this the same as I did then. So I entered currency identifier of 2. I'm going to enter 1 for the amount, so 1 test MasterCoin. And then the address, which I just copied to my clipboard, Crypto Beggars. Now this is a Bitcoin address. There's nothing special about this address other than that he's going to use it to manage his MasterCoins in the future. He has to be able, I should note, he has to be able to send from this address, which means you can't use certain web wallets. You have to be able to control the address to the point where you can send money to it and then send money from that address. And we'll talk about that a little bit more later. So I'm going to hit enter here. So what came out of that is just a 2-step process to send this guy some test MasterCoin. Step 1 is you have to send all your funds in your wallet to the address which owns, the test MasterCoins, and that's there. And then step 2, you send 0.00006. That's Bitcoins. That's about half a cent to each of the following addresses. So the first one is a tag. It's called that's the Exodus address we looked at earlier. Basically, including that address in all of my MasterCoin transactions makes it really easy to parse the blockchain and ignore everything that we don't care about. If I only look at things that have that address in them, I can ignore, for instance, all the Satoshi Dice transactions, pretty much everything except for MasterCoin. The second line there is the recipient address. That is exactly his Bitcoin address that I'm sending to. And then there's something called the data address, and this is where magic happens. So if you take that data address, there's a checksum at the end, and if you strip out the version number and the checksum, data stored is that last line there, and you see some hexadecimal data. So let's go back over here, and I talk in this post about what that hexadecimal data was. Now I'm scrolling down here to a screenshot. This is what it looked like when I sent the first ever MasterCoin transaction. If you're really astute, you may have noticed that I accidentally sent 0.0006 Bitcoins for each of these, which made it 10 times more expensive than it should have been, but that's fine. So I ended up, paying 5 cents each or something instead of half a cent each. So that's what it looked like, and then I hit send, and then I'm going to scroll down to where I talk about what that data means. So we're going to break down the data that was in that. I'm sorry if this is getting a little technical for you guys, but I want to show you that this is actually happening, that the first transaction actually happened, and actually several transactions have happened since then. So breaking down the address itself, the Bitcoin version number, all Bitcoin addresses typically start with 1, and that's an artifact of the version number being 0 and the way that that's converted into the address format. And then at the end there's a checksum. And then here is the MasterCoin transaction data that I highlighted. Now, if we look at the transaction data, the first thing is a sequence number. This helps me keep track of which packet is which. It helps me keep the recipient's address separate from the data address. I'm not going to go into that. You can read the specification to understand more about that. The transaction type, I've got a 32-bit integer here. Type 0 is the simplest type of transaction, which is just to send the currency from one person to another. So it's called simple send. Currency identifier is a 32-bit integer. Identifier 2 is for test MasterCoins. And then the amount transferred, I use a 64-bit integer, and you have to multiply it. Basically, I'm using a fixed point notation here. You just multiply by, what is that number? Like 100 million, looks like. Basically, we're talking about how many Satoshis did we transfer, and except the context is MasterCoin. So, 10 to the minus 8. How many of those did we transfer multiplied by 100 million? And so this number that I highlight here times 100 million is 1 test MasterCoin was sent. And then there's some extra padding because I didn't need all of the data in that address. So essentially what we did is we destroyed some Bitcoins there. That should be clear. We made up an address. The address was, this address here at the bottom of the Bitcoin QT client. That's not a real address. That's just to hide some data in the blockchain. And by sending some data there, we killed about, in this case, about 5 cents worth of Bitcoins, but normally it would have been half a cent worth of Bitcoins if I hadn't had a typo. And that tells everybody who's parsing the MasterCoin protocol, and they can see that and see that I sent some MasterCoins. In this case, test MasterCoins. So that was the first ever transaction. There are any other types of transactions. I've defined several of them in my specification. That, if you look at, do a search for MasterCoin or Exodus address or something, it'll bring you to this thread that I'm currently on in my web browser here. And it links to the specification and has pages and pages and pages of discussion about people arguing about whether certain parts of the protocol will work, as I think they will. And this is Windows 8, which sometimes takes things other places. Okay. So I just opened the first page of this thread just to kind of show you guys what you can find there. There's a link to the specification. There's some stuff about me. My LinkedIn profile has a ton of stuff about things I've written about Bitcoin, and links to the video. Oh, and there's a link to the video actually right here of me and the panelist as a panelist at the Bitcoin conference in San Jose. And I should mention I have a separate PDF just for risks, because I really want to make sure that everybody knows that investing in experimental currencies is really, really risky. So this is an experiment built on top of an experiment. Gavin calls Bitcoin an experiment and don't invest more in it than you can afford to lose. Well, I'm building a protocol layer on top of Bitcoin. So it's an experiment on top of an experiment, and more risky. Bitcoin wasn't risky enough. So then there's some instructions about, how to send money to the Exodus address and being careful not to do that from a wallet that you can't control sufficiently to use for this. And finally here, there's a link to the giveaway thread. So they're giving away very small amounts of MasterCoins and test MasterCoins to people to play with. So let's see. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I want to cover here. I think I've covered the very, very basics of it. How much of my 15 minutes have I used?
Oh, that was great. I think you've probably covered about 14, 15 minutes of content.
Oh, perfect.
So
well,
I think
that's
we're right
great.
on time.
I wasn't watching the clock, but that's perfect. That's all. That's the vast majority of what I wanted to say. So
Very good. No, I thought it was good to delve into those technical aspects, and I think that's very helpful. There's a lot of very technical savvy people in the group that I think will dig into that. But let me sort of back it up and take it from a less technical perspective and more of an investor perspective in some of my questions. And so, from an investor perspective, how would you explain the value of this protocol layer that you're building? Meaning, what is the utility and the expected function that you see of people using the protocol to send this additional data? Because it seemed like from your example, this was the intended purposes were storing some additional data in the blockchain associated with MasterCoins. Is this we've had a lot of colored coin companies present bits of proof, open transactions, others. And, is that along the same lines? Like, for instance, I wanted to, issue some shares and I would use a MasterCoin and some associated data in order to issue shares in a stock, or is this for other purposes?
that's a really good question, and I neglected to mention where this is going. We just looked at Ascend. There's distributed betting built into the protocol as defined. That basically means person A publishes some data, and persons B and C publish bets on that data, and everyone running the protocol can see who won that bet, and there's no central authority. Right now, if you want to do bet, for instance, on the price of gold tomorrow, you can go to one of various Bitcoin betting sites, but you have to trust them with your Bitcoins. This is trusting math and trusting a protocol. You do have to have a reliable data source being published into the blockchain, but once you have that, people can bet on it. So that's going to be a huge use case. And the investor profit motive here is much the same as investing in Bitcoin early on. The idea is that these coins become hopefully absurdly valuable someday. Another use case, probably the one I'm most excited about, is the ability to create stabilized currencies. So once we have some data in the blockchain, for instance, publishing the price of gold, I have protocol messages defined, which will create an escrow fund, not managed by a person, managed by the protocol, which will allow people to have currencies which track the value of things like gold, things like currencies like the dollar and the euro. So if you can imagine, storing dollars and euros and spending them as we do Bitcoin now, but having that price stability and being able to store other things too. Have some currency that tracks the value of oil, crude oil, or a stock or a commodity. So the potential for stuff like that is mind-boggling. The biggest drawback to using Bitcoin right now is that volatility, and there's pretty cool opportunity here to provide people with tools that give them a stable price currency running right on top of Bitcoin. So I'm not going to get into the technical details too deep on how that works. I'd refer you to the specification and the pages and pages of arguments about people talking about it on this thread as well. There's been a lot of back and forth about that. too. I'm really excited about it. I think it's going to be awesome. There are a huge number of other possibilities for how this can be used. Another one that was in the initial specification is something I called the savings wallet. And the idea there is that you have a wallet that you want for long-term savings, and you broadcast a message to the network that says that that wallet is your savings wallet, and it's reversible. So if somebody tries to send money out of that wallet, you can reverse that from a different wallet. And obviously, you wouldn't use that to buy something, but you'd have to transfer it out and wait for the reversibility period to expire before you could spend those coins. But it'd be a lot easier to sleep at night, I think, if you knew that if somebody transferred coins out of your savings wallet, that you could undo that. And so that's also laid out in detail in the specification. And people are sending me other ideas. Everybody seems to have their own idea of what MasterCoin could do someday, and so it's an exciting project.
Very interesting.
Did I sufficiently answer your question about what an investor would get out of this?
Yeah, no, I think that helps define some of the value. Sounds similar to some of what Open Transactions is talking about as far as the transfer and ownership of currencies and commodities and all different types of stuff. That seems to be a common thread amongst folks that are building sort of the next layer on top of Bitcoin.
Yep.
But I understand that you're doing it in the blockchain itself as opposed to doing it on a third-party system where you need a pool of servers and voting rights and things like that. You're using the
Right.
chain itself and the protocol itself to manage the ownership. So
yeah,
that's interesting.
That's exactly right.
And one of my questions is, I assume this is open source.
Yes.
And what I guess the question is, so this is open source, so people are going to fork this and create different versions of it. What is the thought or plan around the Kickstarter type approach with issuing the first coins? Is that because there's not mining involved in the coins, and so
That's true.
you need to create some sort of way of fairly distributing, and so you've created this period in which people can purchase them and get them issued, and then of course there'll be a market for them at some point when people start trading them, when there's enough players that own the coin. Is that understanding correct? If it is open source, who's working on it? Meaning, are you open to other developers? Is there a core dev team developing beyond yourself? Where do you expect it to go? And how do you, just to throw one more question on top of that, how do you address the issue when somebody creates a fork and creates their own version that doesn't require the Kickstarter or something like that? If they feel it's too centralized.
Boy, that's actually a lot of questions all in one. But let's see. The issue of being open source is of course the same issue that Bitcoin faces. Open source makes you more trustworthy and also makes it easy for someone to grab your source code, fork it, and do their own thing. Bitcoin has dominated over the alt currencies largely because it was the first mover. Some of the alt currencies do offer some additional nifty features, but my argument would be that none of them really have provided huge innovation over Bitcoin, and therefore Bitcoin is still by far the centrally used distributed currency. So that's an inevitable risk. Somebody else could do it. Your understanding is exactly correct regarding the distribution of MasterCoins. I needed some way to get them out, and I wanted some way for people to be able to invest. If somebody had a lot of money, I wanted them to be able to profit proportionally to their investment, and I wanted to be able to raise some funds. There's a fair amount of money that's been raised here. 2,176 odd Bitcoins, and the fundraiser isn't over yet. So although at this point I don't plan on quitting my day job, so that's a discussion between my wife and I, that's kind of ongoing. But so you asked who's on my development team. Well, right now it's me plus bounties. So the idea is once the fundraising period is over, I'm going to start offering some bounties to people who will do some of the work towards these project milestones. I didn't mention that. There's in my thread the second post lists our project milestones and which ones have been completed and kind of progress on the next milestone. So there's going to be some bounties pretty soon on that. That's going to be the main use, I think, of these Exodus address funds. I'm trying to think of did I answer? I answered some of your questions. Were there others I didn't get to?
Yeah, no, that's helpful to understand, and I can understand the logic behind that, and wanting to bring in funds. I think one reaction or skepticism people will get, depending on how much more funding comes in, but you're currently essentially half of the funding, and
Yeah.
so you'll own half of the master coins. And I don't begrudge that to you at all, given that you created the system, and but I just want to sort of echo. I'm sure the question people will have is, sort of the diversity of the outcome. A problem or a question that people often have of Ripple is, here's a centralized system, and all these coins have been set aside, and they're handing out some. What about the future creation of coins? Who controls that? Is the dev team going to say okay, or is there going to be a vote of 51% of the coins says, all right, we're going to issue more coins, or is this going to be all the coins that are ever created, and there's something in the protocol that controls that? I think that's probably a common question people are going to
have. Yeah. So the number of master coins issued is the number bought before the end of this month. And that's the end of the story. Now, if at some point in the future it becomes clear that creating more would be in the benefit of people who currently own master coins, we might explore that. It would certainly be, it wouldn't be just me saying, hey, but here's some more master coins. It would be, some sort of vote based on people who currently own them. And I would probably abstain from that, given that I own so many. So that's the short answer, I guess.
Okay. No, that's helpful to understand. I'm just trying to understand if there's something built into the protocol, because of course what makes any cryptocurrency interesting is that there's a limited amount, right? The reason we're all interested in, why all the Austrian economists jumped into Bitcoin so early, right? It's because we get that there's value where there's scarcity, right? And
exactly right.
I assume there is the same limit on these that there is with Bitcoin, meaning that you can go down to the 8th decimal point. So let's say 2,000 coins have been 2,000 Bitcoins have been purchased as part, or donated or invested as part of this this Kickstarter fundraiser, and that'll create 100 times as many. So it's going to give you 200,000 master coins.
Right. Plus a early bird bonus, and there are some master coins that go to the Exodus address over years from now. The idea behind that, I think it's 10%. I have to look at the specification, and then that's over many years. And the idea there is I was trying to create a incentive that would say this is not just I'm going to create this thing and then pump and dump it and sell all of mine. Kind of a long-term incentive to make sure that my interests are completely aligned with the investors. And I was more worried about the case where I was 5% of the total pie. That the incentive there would be different than when I'm half of it. And if I was only 5%, I wanted some sort of ongoing thing that would, over many years, make sure I stayed with the project, or that the project was being worked on. And I may not even need that 10% thing that I put in the specification. If I'm half, it's pretty clear that I have a big incentive to make it work. But we'll see.
Right.
But yeah, there's a very set limit on how many master coins is the answer to your question. There's no method to create more of them after this set amount have been released.
Right. And, and ultimately, right, the percentage is not so much what matters, right? It's the value of the coins themselves, right? So would you
Yeah.
rather own 5% of Microsoft or 5% of a startup, right? You'd rather own,
Yeah.
for maybe these days I should be saying Google or Facebook, but
Yeah.
if you own 5% of Google or Facebook, you've got a huge, right? I mean, in that case, right, that's billions and billions, tens of billions of dollars, right? So, you know, it's not so much about the percentage; it's about what's the value of master coins, and building up that value. So no, I think that's logical. I think I understand that. Trying to think through sort of other things that would be valuable for people that are listening and to understand. So a couple other questions come to mind. Have you talked to Gavin? It seems like you guys have had a lot of good discussion on the forums. I don't know if he's
Uh-huh.
chimed in, or if sort of the foundation or the core development team sort of perspective on this stuff. You mentioned some
Sure.
of the bloating issues. Are they concerned about that, or is this something they're encouraging as a future use?
I wouldn't say they're encouraging it. This is going to cause some headaches. If this is really, really successful, it could cause some headaches. Uh, I believe it's justified. That is, MasterCoin is built around transfers of value, which is what Bitcoin does. But there's going to, if Bitcoin becomes way more useful, there's going to be way more transfers of value, and the blockchain is going to get way bigger, way faster than it would have otherwise.
Mhm.
So there's definitely a trade-off there. I've talked to, probably the developer I've talked to the most is Jeff Garzik. And, we've talked about this sort of protocol layering stuff ad nauseum. But, he hasn't put a stamp of approval on my project. I should say that. But, we're kind of in agreement in the general approach of protocol layering. Gavin probably remembers me as the guy who spilled water on him at the conference. I was sitting across from him at the speakers dinner because I happened to get there a little early, and so he came down, and he was one of the second person in and sat right across from me. And in the course of the meal, I spilled my ice water on him, which was awesome. That was my introduction to Gavin. Anyway, and at that dinner, I was talking to people around me about this crazy idea, which I can't stop talking about, and I was kind of keeping an eye on him as I was talking to these other guys, and he was nodding. So I don't know if he was nodding or if he really likes my idea, but I'm gonna I would claim that it's because he really liked my idea. But that's been my interaction with Gavin. I was talking about my idea, and he was nodding, at least which meant maybe I understand what you're talking about, or I'm being polite, or hey, this is a great idea. So.
Very good, very good. I was at that dinner. I was.
Oh, were you? That's awesome.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a small world. So San Jose was a great event. But
Yeah, it
okay.
was awesome.
So the other question is, so is this ready to use? It seems like you still had a number of things that will be part of the bounties you offer and the milestones you have going forward. How long do you expect those to go before sort of you have useful um, a useful product afterwards, right? So, are we
Right.
talking a month of development? Are we talking 6 months, 12 months, a couple of years? What's your expected time?
Well, that's a good question. It depends a lot on how much money is raised. If a ton more money came in, I'd probably quit my job, and we'd have something really awesome easily within a few weeks. I have 3 small children, and I have a great job, and I'm not I should say my wife is really not eager for me to quit that job because it's very family friendly. So it's there's personal dynamics going on here that affect the project timeline, which is why I'm kind of trying to focus on bounties. So assuming that a whole bunch of money doesn't come in, we're going to probably be looking at maybe a small number of months before we have something useful. Assuming that I can put together the right bounties and get the right people working on those things. My abilities as a as a project manager are yet to be proven, I guess. But that's the way this is currently pointed, is bounties and choosing the right people to earn those bounties and hopefully have something within a small number of months that would be the basic functions of MasterCoin.
Mm-hmm. So define more money, right? So you got,
Well, that's a good
200,
question.
right, you have 200,000 nominally, let's call it, well, it's more than that because Bitcoin's 120
Right.
right now. So let's call it
Yeah.
$240,000. So you got a quarter,
That
you got a
seems like a
quarter
lot of
million
money.
dollars. So the question is, what's enough? Are you looking, would that, would that be accelerated if you got to 500,000, or would it need to be substantially more than that, or what are you looking for? Not to mention the
That,
price of Bitcoin's going up.
that's a good question. One of my handicaps is that I'm absurdly well paid. So we're getting into my personal life now, but when I left my last job, I got into a bidding war between multiple companies, and the end result was I got a really, really good situation where I am now. So without going too much into that, my wife really would like to see, oh gosh, I'm not sure how much I want to go into my conversations with my wife. Let's see, if we did get to $500,000, I would take that to my wife and try really, really hard to convince her that this is the direction we should go full time. I can say that for sure. I can't promise that would happen. What I can promise is that this project is going forward regardless of how much money is raised. The timeline is maybe double if I have to do it all on bounties versus quitting my job. But it's definitely going forward either way. And more money helps, and the conversation with how much is enough is ongoing in my family as well as on the forums and on other places.
Very good. Yeah, no, I don't want to push you into anything uncomfortable as far as specifics on the personal side. Just helpful to understand from the investor perspective.
Yeah. I'm not
Because
the
a lot
ideal
of people
person to
come
be doing
through,
this.
and ask, okay, we're looking for 250,000 or 500,000 or
Yeah.
whatever it is,
I,
So
I was really hoping somebody else would do this. For over a year, I've been, publishing ideas about this, trying to convince somebody else to tackle the project, because really, I just wanted to be an investor. I had some Bitcoins. I thought this is the way things should go. I wanted to invest in it. And I had been unsuccessful so far in getting somebody else to take up that mantle. If you watch the video of me at the conference, I'm like practically begging people to take this up so I can send them money. Nobody did. So, so I figured I'd give it a shot. But I'm not the ideal person to be working on this. Ideally, it would be somebody young who could, doesn't have a family and but doesn't have all these other responsibilities. They can just, give everything they have to it for a couple of years and make their investors wildly wealthy. So I'm a little handicapped in that area. That's the way things worked out, and I'm having a lot of fun. So I guess I can't complain. But it is an incredibly fun project, and it's definitely going forward no matter what. It's just a little slow because of everything we just talked about.
very good. Well, no, I appreciate all the information, JR. Getting close to, I think we're a little over 30 minutes, so won't take too much more of your time. I know you've got to take off soon, but this has been really informative. And, part of what we do at BitAngels is we have, 225 people in the group. A lot of them have built a lot of the major Bitcoin companies. A lot of them are very technically savvy. A lot of them, are heavily involved in Bitcoin in a lot of ways, not just owning Bitcoin, but are developers in Bitcoin. So if you would put out, sort of your request to the group of what social capital or what intellectual capital would be most helpful or productive for you to accelerate this project, what would you be looking for? Are you looking for more people to work on the development? And if so, what are the languages they need to know or the Bitcoin protocol experience they need? Or are you looking for other types of help with building the team, whether it's marketing or legal or compliance or just tell us what you need. We've got a lot of resources, and a lot
Sure.
of times people will reach out afterwards.
Well, I wouldn't want to rule out collaborating with just about anybody. Anybody that anything from designers to software developers to people with legal expertise. I can't think of any of the things you mentioned that wouldn't be helpful. And I'd love to be talking to people about those things. So I'm guessing, from what I've seen so far, it's looking like most of the software is going to be in Python and C, C++. Basically, just because I'm stealing a lot of stuff from Armory, Alan Reiner's project. He's got a lot of libraries that will be very helpful to what I'm doing. So there's going to be a lot of C, a lot of Python. So technically, and probably from what I see so far of this project, it's going to be mostly paid for with bounties rather than hiring people to do it. But that could change. If a lot of money comes in, I'll have to start thinking like a CEO and less like a software guy, kind of doing something in his spare time. But and that's an area I'm completely unexperienced in. So if I have to start playing CEO, I'm going to have to start collaborating and getting advice and all sorts of help from other people. Yeah, so I'm absolutely open to collaboration, I guess, is my answer to your question, and I wouldn't want to rule anybody out.
And what's the best way to contact you? Either email, phone number, Skype,
Yeah.
however you prefer. Good place to tell everybody that.
Yeah, email is definitely best. jr.willett@gmail.com. My name has 2 L's and 2 T's. Most people leave off the second T, and the email won't go through if you do that. So WILLETT. So jr.willett@gmail.com. You said you're recording this. Would it be possible for me to get a copy of that recording as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll be posting it to the Google group as well as
Yeah, that's
the
perfect.
Gust profile, and you're certainly welcome to use it.
Yeah, that'd be great. I think the guys that have invested so far would love to hear this conversation.
Very good. All right. Well, JR, I'll let you go and enjoyed the conversation. That's all the questions I've got right now. I'm sure people will be following up with you in the near term. And I'll probably be following up with you myself. But I'll go ahead and stop the recording and we'll get that posted later today.
Awesome. Thank you.